Chapter 2 Honor Among Thieves. "Hey!" I shouted. "What do you think you're doing?" I rushed forward, reaching for my purse. Basad handed the purse to Taki and pushed me back. "Go back to swimming, Ala'an, and be grateful we're not taking your clothes." "You can't steal my take, you baboon." I squeezed my hand into a fist. Basad noticed. His grin turned deadly. "Go ahead, Ala'an. Please, throw it. I'm begging you." Basad's smile brought me back to my senses. Causing trouble with him in the Kaju house would get me beaten, but out here, who knew what he would do? Basad nodded. I thought not. In one swift move, he wound up and smashed his fist into my eye. The world lit up like a lunar aurora if the moons were inches from my face. I was flying or falling. It felt like a long time before I finally hit the ground. I lay stunned, staring into the empty sky. It looked like the stars were trying to push their way through the blue, offering momentary flashes against a too bright sky. I groaned and touched my face. The flesh about my eye felt like a drum's skin, and the drummer had really gone at it. I sat up to see Basad turn away from me. The other boys laughed and went through the rest of our belongings, but I saw more. Ketuva crept low along the rocks. He must have heard the scuffle and climbed around behind the thieves. I smiled, even though the motion hurt. Ketuva stood straight and ran the rest of the way. Basad noticed him first. "Gosh, watch!" Gosher turned, only to get a face full of Ketuva's knuckles. He spun around, staggered backward, fell. Taki threw a punch at Ketuva. His fist bounced off Ketuva's forearm as Ket hammered him, once in the belly, then in the face. Taki sprawled across the ground. Basad, eyes wide, charged in and swung, using the stolen purse like a blackjack. He took Ketuva off guard, and the pouch impacted on Ket's face, splitting his lip. Ketuva reeled backward, stunned. He stuck a foot back and fell to his knee. Basad stepped forward and kicked. Ketuva caught his leg and hammered Basad in the thigh. Basad yelped and fell back, and Ketuva pounced on him. Before I knew it, his knees pinned Basad's arms, and he was throttling him. Basad fought, tried to get a hold of Ketuva or to hit him, but it was useless. The look in Ketuva's eyes stole the heat of the day. "I have had it up to here." He squeezed harder, and Basad croaked, "With you, Basad, but I'm going to give you a chance. You try to rook me again, and I will end you. You try to take revenge, to hurt me or An, and you'll wish I just ripped your head off and dumped you in the river. Do you hear me, Basad?" Basad croaked again. He squeezed his eyes shut, and when he opened them again, they were terrified. He grunted and nodded. "Good." Ketuva released Basad and stood up. Basad pushed to his feet and ran, without the purse. Gosher did the same, struggling to stand and then staggering away. I started getting up when I noticed Taki was on his feet too, but he wasn't running. Something glimmered in his hand. "Ket, watch out!" Taki seemed about to spring when Ketuva turned. Taki's eyes widened, and his face went pale. Ketuva cracked his knuckles. He had blood on his hands, and I don't think anyone cared it was his own. "You'd better be ready to kill me, Taki." Taki's breaths came in gasps. He seemed to waver, his eyes wandering a moment, then he tossed the knife aside. "Look, Ket, I'm sorry. I haven't had a mark in 3 days. I was just hungry, okay?" Ketuva lifted the knife. Taki cringed away, but Ket only threw it into the pond. "Let's go on and grab our stuff." I stood and grabbed our clothes, shoes, and purses. Taki knelt there with his head in his hands, softly sobbing. "Come on, An." I looked down at my purse, then around. Basad and Gosher were out of sight. I pulled a few coins from my purse and dropped them in front of Taki. He gasped and looked at me, tears leaving runnels in the dust on his face. I nodded. "Master will feed you for that." I turned, grabbed our things, and ran. Ketuva and I ran home together. Our breeches and hair had mostly dried from the swim. The Kaju house was a large building in the western part of the lower city, beyond the protective walls surrounding the middle city. and north of the river Corbett. It was 3 stories tall, made of old mud brick, much of which was exposed since Kamala never had the plaster repaired. We stepped down the corridor and into the house's common room, the loose floor tiles clinking beneath our feet. The smells of sweat, greasy stew, and fresh bread mingled together in the air. The common room was wide, with a low ceiling. Rotating fans hung from it, powered by a long belt that connected them to a gap in the wall. The other side of that gap was a room we weren't allowed in. Radiance lamps hung from hooks on the walls, painting the room in a dim, yellow light. Kamala sat on his wooden throne in the middle of the common room, against the back wall. A small table sat on sawhorses before him, with a lockbox on it. All the other boys were lined up at the table, showing their take for the day. The bashers and crewmen, all the rest of the gang, sat at long tables to either side, eating. Only us thieves had to prove our worth before we got a forking at the dinner pot. I listened to the exchanges going on at the front of the line. As each boy brought his take, Kamala counted off the money and decided whether the boy got to join the adults at the table or was sent to bed hungry. Basad and Gosher were in front of us. Kamala frowned and sent them to bed. By the time Ketiva stood before Kamala's table, nobody had brought a sum even close to mine, even after I had shared with Ketiva and Taki. His turn came. He stepped up to Kamala and dropped his money on the table. Kamala cocked his head, taking us both in. "Quite a few of my thieves are coming in bruised. I certainly hope you weren't caught taking this." "No, master," Ketiva and I said at once. Kamala's jaw shifted as if he might speak, then he nodded and took Ketiva's money. "Sit down." "Thank you, master." Ketiva turned, and I sauntered up and laid my take on the table. Kamala counted it out. 8 farah. I nodded and tried to keep my smile under control. "Yes, master." I studied his features, searching for any sign or hint of his thoughts. A flicker of a grin, a widening of the eyes, anything. He scraped the coins into his hand and dropped them into the box. "Find your seat." I frowned. "Aren't you surprised that I brought in so much? 8 farah, and almost triple what most everyone else brought in. Master," his hand snapped out and clouted me on the side of my head. "Quit your gloating, you blighted gutter rat. Find your seat." I rocked to one side, stunned by the blow. Ketiva caught me by the shoulders and dragged me to the table, half to keep me on my feet and half to hold me from charging Kamala. I sucked in a deep breath to shout something, but Ketiva was first, whispering harsh words into my ear. "Keep your mouth shut." He shoved me onto a bench and sat next to me. I blinked away at false stars. A bowl of greasy stew dropped in front of me. I grabbed a piece of thin bread and started to eat, keeping my head low and trying to wrestle away my anger and pain. "I told you, An," Ketiva said, a little louder now that the din of the others eating and talking would screen our conversation. "Master's never going to appreciate what you steal. It'll never be enough." I lifted my head enough to glare at Kamala. He locked up his box, set it next to him, and started eating from a special tray the cook brought, with big chunks of meat and vegetables and cheese. He didn't even look at me. "We'll see about that."